Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today, we are going to take a look at Venus's upcoming conjunction to Pluto. It is one of a number of transits that are happening this week, including a full moon. Mercury is getting ready to turn retrograde. Jupiter and the Sun are going to conjoin. So there's a lot to talk about. We'll start here today with Venus and Pluto. And again, videos this week are going to be a little bit shorter than usual. I know some people are going to like that, some people aren't, um, because I'm still in the midst of doing it's a grind for me. Basically, the month of January every year, it's a lot of recordings that I'm doing for people, giving saying thank you gift to say thank you to people. These little reward gifts that I make from the Kickstarter. So that kind of overwhelms me a little bit in January. Take a little bit of a break and then try to get back to it as quickly as I can. But thank you all for being patient. I've been getting some really nice emails from you guys saying that you miss having the content around, and that has really warmed my heart. So thank you. All right, so here you can see Venus going into a conjunction with Pluto in Capricorn. So when will that perfect? It gets to within the 3-degree range starting tomorrow, Tuesday, January 26th. And it will perfect before Friday. Let's see, it's between, essentially it's going to perfect on Thursday morning, January 28th, but you'll be able to feel the effects of this really all the way through Saturday. So I would consider this to be a Tuesday through Saturday of this week transit. And again, that's going to start on the 26th and run all the way through the 30th, that's where I would anticipate the most, kind of intense expression of this transit. Now, I want to point out some other things that are happening, which I'll be unpacking video by video as the week goes on. You're also going to see that the Sun is conjoining Jupiter, and that conjunction happens between the 28th and the 29th, Thursday and Friday. That's happening just after Venus perfects its conjunction with Pluto. The other thing that you're seeing is by Saturday and into Sunday, the 30th into the 31st, Mercury will turn retrograde in Aquarius. You can see that right there. So Mercury is already starting to slow down, going to stop, turn retrograde. So there will be some, what do I want to say? Some adjustments where we're heading right now will often face reversals or changes of direction. We're going to be talking more about that later in the week as well. What to speak of the fact that this week we also have a full moon. This full moon is going to be in the sign of Leo. You can see it right there across the Leo Aquarius axis. And this full moon will be opposite Saturn, the sun, obviously, and Jupiter. And it will be hitting a T-square to Uranus and Mars. So the full moon is quite powerful this month because it's engaging with so many planets at the same time. And that full moon is happening as Venus perfects the conjunction with Pluto. So very dynamic week ahead. Okay, we're going to start with Venus and Pluto and kind of break it down one transit at a time this week and try to do some synthesizing as we get to the full moon. So let's start. I'm going to write some things on the screen here for all of you. Let's start with Venus. So obviously we know that Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, relationships. Now, relationships for Venus can be friendships, or they could be intimate relationships or marriage. They can also be sort of passionate love affairs, maybe that aren't as substantive, but that are, kind of really steamy and really addicting or alluring in some way. So Venus can represent relationships of all kinds. Venus is also going to be related to the objects of our desire. What that means is, we have senses, and in the yogic philosophy, in yoga philosophy, we think about the objects of our senses, our sensory objects that we desire, that we think will satiate us. It could be a piece of food, it could be another person, it could be a certain amount of money or status, but whatever the image is that we go toward thinking, if I have that, if I taste it, if I consume it, if I hold it, then I'll be satisfied. Venus can represent that for better or worse, in really benign ways and in really malignant ways, in ways that are, when Venus becomes the desire to serve other people in a spirit of harmony and love, it's a little bit better than when Venus is just there to satisfy its own selfish selfish interests, selfish desires. And Venus can also be related to vanity as well as lust. So now you have some similar qualities actually in Mars. And remember, the two are sort of illicit lovers in the Greek mythology. Anyway, so that's important to remember Venus's dark side because sometimes it gets brought out a little bit more when it's with Pluto. Venus can also speak to women, sisters, daughters. Usually mothers are sort of reserved for the moon, but anything that would relate to that feminine side of things. And the feminine side of things, of course, is not inherently linked to the female sex. We're talking about an expression that can show up in men as well as women, as well as however anyone may identify. Now we also have Pluto. Pluto this week. Let's talk about that. So Pluto is going to be the ruler of the underworld, and in a symbolic sense, the ruler of riches. Pluto literally means riches, and the underworld. When you mine deep into things, you often uncover hidden beauty, hidden richness, hidden substance. So it's hidden, it's rich, it's underworld, it's subterranean. It's also deep, it's dark, it's powerful, sometimes demonic or evil, and also, what do we want to say, cryptic, enigmatic. Pluto is also about the forces that are building up where we can't see them and eventually will be released with volcanic force, an eruption of subterranean power. So pent up energies and their release. Now, sometimes Pluto is also going to be associated with purgation or purification. For example, if you have energy that's pent up inside and it's doing some damage and you need to purge it so that it doesn't create toxicity in the body or the mind or an environment of some kind. Pluto is like the expiration date of all things, and the expiration date that says, look, if you don't get rid of it beyond this expiration date, I could become toxic and infect, like almost like what is that? Sepsis, is that what it's called? Septic, going septic. The body becomes like that, or gangrene, kind of gross. So, but in that process with Pluto of purgation, there's oftentimes a regenerative quality and a kind of primal restoration of health, vitality, strength, and power because something gets released that's been toxic, that's been built up. So those are the archetypes of Venus and Pluto. And remember, this is going to perfect on Thursday, January 28th. So what can we expect from this combination? Well, the obvious combination is going to be where if there's any kind of release of pent-up energy that needs to, a release of pent-up energy within relationships, romantic relationships, a release of erotic sexual energy, a release of secrets or unhealthy patterns within relationships. I can't tell you how many times over 10 years I've seen people come to understand that their partner's been having an affair, unfortunately, while Pluto and Venus get together in the natal chart. There's oftentimes just moments of that where tensions have been building underneath the surface in any kind of relationship, a friendship or a marriage or a dating relationship or a work relationship even. And suddenly everyone just lays their cards on the table, and it's very powerful. Sometimes it's very sudden. It can be very destructive, and it can feel really dark. And sometimes betrayal, or the sense of people having hidden or kept things. But then it all gets released. And sometimes that's going to be really destructive. And sometimes, despite being difficult, it will be regenerative and it will be very healing. So that kind of transformative moment around relationships and love is definitely a part of the week ahead. The other thing that can happen, of course, is we can become completely fanatical. Pluto can be very obsessive, and the subterranean impulse, the darkness, can be a part of, unfortunately, again, things like people who get obsessed and stalk an ex-girlfriend or something like that, or the idea of people becoming captured by the objects of their desires to the point where it becomes dark or there's a menacing quality to it. You can see sometimes you're going to see scandals erupt around sex in the news or around different forms of sexual abuse or perversion of some kind or another that is really toxic and comes to light somehow. Sometimes you're also going to see the empowerment, the eruption of a kind of empowering energy around women in the workplace or women in society or in the spotlight somewhere. Sometimes you're also going to literally see the downfall or the dark side of something within a relationship sometimes obviously even sometimes there'll be I'm trying to think of the talk show host's name who turned out to be kind of like her staff was getting abused. She has a talk show and I can't remember her name. But that kind of like something's revealed about the feminine facade of Venus can be very beautiful and very like, oh, it looks really nice, and pleasant. But then behind the scenes, there might be something kind of dark and that gets exposed. So anything where there's a kind of Venusian facade and then some darkness behind the scenes sort of erupts. There can also be, what do I want to say? Questions about what do I really want? And and desire is not a bad thing. We learn by virtue of the desires that we pursue. We never really are quite satisfied with what we get after we taste the object of our desire, touch it or hold it or possess it or whatever it might be, because it's very fleeting and it often takes a lot more energy to maintain than we think it will. And it doesn't last and there's pain associated with it. So we very quickly, at the very least, we become educated and we say, okay, well, it isn't exactly what I thought it was, or it's not going to make me as happy as I thought it was. That tends to be how things go. But when we come into contact with the object of our desire and it has a transformative effect, and we say, oh, this isn't what I desired, or I'm seeing the truth about something that I desired, or we get really clear about a healthy versus an unhealthy desire, those kinds of things can happen and become magnified during a Venus-Pluto transit. The other thing to watch for is Venus has a cutthroat side. There's a little bit of Mars in Venus and there's some Venus in Mars. There's a great book that James Hillman wrote called A Terrible Love of War, where he looks at the hidden secret dynamics between Venus and Mars. Venus's cutthroat dynamic has to do with the facade, the vanity of appearances and so forth. And behind the facade, people can be pretty cutthroat. And so watch this week for the temptation to gossip, to manipulate, to triangulate, or to manipulate a situation to try to get what you want, but to do so in a way that looks all good on the surface. That can erupt and backfire this week if we're not careful. You can also see transformations of beauty or the dark or subterranean aesthetic. Sometimes Venus, especially in Capricorn, just likes to wear black. You know what I mean? Venus in Capricorn has a way of appreciating the wintry qualities, the dark and subterranean qualities. So allow for an exploration of that side of the world, that side of divinity, that way in which the world shows us divinity to come forth this week. Don't be afraid of a darker or more enigmatic or subterranean or mysterious quality to become alluring or beautiful. Of course, there's a fine line. You can get pulled into things. I feel like this is a week where people get trapped by impulses that are, a little bit like the devil card in tarot. You see the lovers standing there with the chains around their necks, and they're bound of their own accord. I mean, they're big enough where they could just take them off on their own if they wanted to. People always say that. So watch for that. So I'm going to leave it here. I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think about Venus Pluto? Did any of you have it in your birth chart? Have you ever had any transits from Pluto to Venus in your birth chart? What kinds of things happened when you did? How do you think about this transit? What other things am I missing here? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, there's a lot to cover this week, but these videos will be a little on the shorter end. Usually my videos are anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. But be doing slightly shorter videos this week because, like I said, I'm still in the midst of fulfilling Kickstarter rewards. Thank you all, by the way, for your support. And I hope you guys have a really great week. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye.